I was born at the very end of the Jim Crow era to working class parents. And from my perspective, it felt like society had already predicted the trajectory of my life, what I would achieve, where I would belong, and where I wouldn't. In my view, underestimation is one of the most dangerous forces in society because it doesn't just limit what people do, it limits who they believe they can become. And the most dangerous part is this: most of the time, it's invisible. Low expectations can lead to lowered standards, and then they can seem like opportunities that just never quite come your way. Like someone's deciding, without ever saying it out loud, how far you're allowed to go. I learned what that felt like early, from birth. Just sit over there, and we'll get to her. That's what a nurse said to my father about my mother, who was bleeding on the waiting room floor, pregnant with me and hemorrhaging. As if she was saying, how dare they seek help in a white-only hospital. So even as I earned degrees and built a career and stepped into leadership roles, a question followed me everywhere. Do I really belong here? No one said it outright, but it showed up in subtle ways, in surprise, and lowered expectations, in moments that suggested that I was the exception, not the expectation. And for a long time, I thought it was just me, just overthinking things, until one sentence changed how I saw everything. Years ago, when talking about productivity with one of my lead staff members, she said, you know, water seeks its own level. At first, it sounded simple, but the longer I sat with it, the more I realized just how profound it was. People rise or sink to the level that they're expected to reach. Expectations don't just shape performance, they shape identity. And when the expectations are low, confidence erodes. When confidence erodes, people stop feeling like they belong. And in my experience, when people stop feeling like they belong, they stop raising their hand. They stop taking risk. And sometimes they stop imagining more for themselves. Now, on the other hand, when expectations are higher, paired with belief and support, something powerful happens. There's a shift from a limiting belief mindset to a growth mindset. People stretch, they persist, they surprise even themselves. And there's real science behind it. Psychologists call it self-efficacy. It's a simple but powerful concept, and it means what you believe about your ability strongly influences what you actually do. When people believe they're capable, they try longer. They recover faster from setbacks. They perform better. Now, you layer that onto something else that researchers have discovered called stereotype threat. This happens when people are aware, even subtly, that their group is expected to fail. Not because they believe that the stereotype is true, but because the pressure of it consumes mental energy. Nothing about their ability changes. What changes is the story that surrounds them. And in my work at Goodwill, I've seen this over and over again. Some years ago, a young high school graduate came to our Goodwill. He was on the autism spectrum and seemingly nonverbal. He spoke, but only at home. His goal was to work in customer service in a retail environment, but his state worker laughed at the idea of someone who was afraid to speak or even interact with people. Now that's an example of stereotype threat. My staff worked with him, and after a few months, he felt comfortable speaking with people. A year later, he was working in customer service, had made Employee of the Month, and had even been asked to present to local merchants alongside the marketing team. Now his progress, that's what's called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the science that confirms that our brains, they're not fixed. When people are challenged and supported and believed in, the brain can literally rewire itself. Capacity grows with use. Potential expands with expectations. So when we underestimate people, we don't just limit their opportunity, we interrupt their growth. And studies show that those limits, they don't fall evenly across society. They land the hardest on people with disabilities, on people of color, on people with limited access to education and economic opportunity. And I've watched people come in labeled by what they couldn't do, only to become leaders, mentors, and top performers once someone finally expected more. Not perfection, possibility. And I want to be clear here, because language matters. It's not the disability that is the most limiting. It's the world's refusal to see ability. When we decide, consciously or unconsciously, that someone has a ceiling, we don't just cap their opportunities, we cap their identity. And once I truly understood that, I had to confront something uncomfortable about myself. I realized that I had been living inside other people's expectations of me. Yes, I was successful, but still shrinking. Accomplished, but still questioning whether I belonged. So I made a choice. I stopped performing to the version of myself that the world had predicted, and I started leading, thinking, and living from who I actually was and who I could still become. That shift changed everything. You see, it changed how I showed up as a leader. It changed how I evaluated talent. It changed how I saw people, not from where they are now, but for where they could go. So, let me offer you a new perspective, one you can use immediately. First, see people fully. Not as labels or resumes or even assumptions, but as human beings, still in progress. Second, expect possibility. Not perfection or instant success, just a genuine belief that growth is possible. Third, speak belief. Your words don't disappear when the conversation ends. Sometimes they become someone's inner voice. And finally, challenge your assumptions. When you catch yourself saying, oh man, they're just not capable of anymore, pause and ask whether that's a fact or a habit. Because small shifts in expectation can create massive shifts in identity and behavior. So here's my invitation to you. The next time you encounter someone who looks different, thinks differently, or moves through this world differently, ask yourself, Am I seeing this person's limitations or their potential? Because expecting more from people isn't pressure. It's permission. Permission to become. Permission to rise. Permission to break the limits others place on them. And when we raise our expectations, I believe we raise people. And when we raise people, I believe we raise society. Thank you.